He's got space.
Okay, today is
On that
August
side.
17th, 2016, 5:30 on a Wednesday to discuss a real estate purchase contract that we received on the land that we had up for bid, or up for sealed bids. What you have in front of you, and everyone, but Mick is here right now. Mick will come just a few minutes late. He is on his way currently. But what you have in front is the contract that they did submit. Currently, or at the time, we only had one submittal for interest in that property. This one, from what I can tell, is the exact same that we reviewed prior to. They just went through, resubmitted to meet our guidelines on our posting that we did for the 5 weeks? 4 weeks, 5 weeks?
5 weeks.
The 5 weeks. So this was submitted from the contractor. I know I spoke with Rick 2 days, was it yesterday?
Yes.
Yesterday, and I was gonna go through and I was going to not necessarily argue his points, but bring his points to the council, since at the time he wasn't sure that he was going to be able to make it back. So for getting back in time, thank you. I know it was a rush and last minute thing, but I appreciate that, and I'm glad that safe travels back.
Thank you.
Rick, if you want, you can go through, we'll go around the table, pluses, minuses, what you think of it, what your concerns are, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Okay. Let me start with a question, if I may, on, I don't know which page. 1, 2, how about 3 at the very bottom, number 2, B number 2. And it starts to list what they can't do and things like that. Is that general, or did we make that up, or?
That is a general, that is one of the things that lean towards the people they'll represent a little bit, to try and make sure that they don't have a like store right next to them. Does it favor them a little bit? Absolutely. Absolutely does.
The B1 pretty well knocks out all of the other similar competition.
Similar.
Yes.
This is
distraction,
distraction.
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And we have those, we have a lot of that stuff in our ordinances.
I would rather we police it through our own ordinances though, rather than by them dictating to us what we have to do in order to allow them to take this property. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that's where it belongs. I think our own ordinances should police that, not this document.
And ours would take precedence over that. And Katie was not able to make it, so she can't give the actual legal side.
And then I
Yeah,
guess
and I think ours are stronger than this.
the question that
They're pretty strict.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably a good thing,
Well, yeah.
like for porn and drugs and
Right.
all that stuff.
You don't want
Okay.
that.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
are specific. The other thing to look at is, if you look up here, the yellow is residential. So right now, the other lot or the other parcel is not zoned. So that's something that would have to come through us anyway,
Right.
to approve or disapprove, or not through us, through the soon-to-be-established planning
Zoning,
commission
yeah,
and
right.
zoning review
Right.
board. So that stuff down here, I mean, it's not even set up for any of those.
Right.
This right now is residential, which will need a zoning change
Right.
from them.
There's that farmhouse, is that residential or is that farm?
Farmhouse right here,
Well, that,
just
Yeah,
south,
Browns.
that one was residential.
oh, okay.
But-
So basically, between the farmhouse and the barn, that is where this line is right here. The barn at one time was outside, from what I understand, outside of the village boundaries.
Yeah,
So that section never has been zoned within the village. I mean, it's still part of the village
Part of the
now,
village,
but
but it's not
it has
zoned.
not been established as a zoned area.
Will they be all right with that once we rezone all of that, the other acreage?
Well, what we look at is rezoning that one area, that 1.7 that is in here.
Yeah, let's go.
and then leave the other go, because we don't know what it's going to be. Now, this down here, I'm not sure when we actually need to adjust that,
Okay.
but that wouldn't even be an issue.
Okay, well, do as you go. Yeah, okay. Well, my questions to Mr. Mayor Beck was that, if we sell this property to, appears to be what is a broker, I would call it, does he have the right to sell this to other people?
Yes, he does. Go back to page 2, item 12. That's concerning. Buyer may at any time assign or transfer interest in this agreement with notice to seller. It doesn't say that we can veto it or control it. It says that they have to tell us that they're selling it to somebody else.
And they would still be restricted on what can be put there.
Okay, well,
That's still restricted under our
And of
zoning
course,
ordinance.
it says this agreement, which is this agreement right here, shall be binding upon and enforceable against and shall inure to the benefit of the parties and the respective legal representatives, successors, and assigns. That means it's into perpetuity. And that was something I talked to Joey about on the
Mhm.
phone a few days back, that if this property sells, changes hands, a building gets built, it's for this intended purpose, goes out of business, is sold in the future, somebody else wants to go and do something different. If these restrictions are into perpetuity, our hands are tied. There's absolutely nothing we can do. To me, that's not something.
Well, that's a concern I had is, we put the short end of this deal somewhere along the line.
It's written to favor them in every way, shape, and form, and I hope they're not over next year. They're trying to take
I
it
don't know that, of course. But I am glad that we have some interest, in something, and I'm glad we have that property available, so, I guess I'm good with it as long as others have comments, and I don't really want to do the short end of the deal.
Right.
Right, no, I agree.
Is there anything that we put in there that we get in the first op, like if they do try to sell it?
But we could just strike 12, period. I mean, we have to write, modify this, give it back to them, and say, let's finish it back and forth, reason agreement.
Or at least let us have the option, or,
And I would like to see, if they don't want to strike 15B on page 3, at least have it understood that if this parcel changes hand and the intended use of property changes, this stuff becomes null and void. And then I still feel that B2, that our rules on the book should take precedent at this time, that it should be emphasized.
Then ours, I'm going to assume that ours would take precedence over that.
And you just went from saying would to saying now you assume.
Well, I mean, I can't definitely say, I'm not the attorney, but it's one of those that we already have the rules of the book, so we would supersede some of the items here.
I'm sure.
That's my take on it, because we already have it established, you can't come in and, you know,
My take on it is that we have to do a that's what we base it.
yeah.
And our legal representative, right?
Right, but I will say, she was okay with all of it because of what we have on the books already.
Yes.
This way she put it. So I would think she must be.
So she's not proven herself to be yet to have that total confidence at this time. I know anytime that I deal with new attorneys, there's a big learning curve.
Sure.
Sometimes we spend time educating them to facts that we make the assumption they do as they come up to speed
Yeah.
and get better on the best of the time. There's no doubt in my mind she's going to do the best job where she possibly can. I just don't know if she's a real estate document lawyer at this point.
If I recall, she had others look at
I'm
it.
saying,
Since
it'd be my bet she had
That is
Schaefer's looking
my
at it.
recollection on that when she was talking to them to us.
Mr. Sperling, if, just throw 2 cents in there on that subject you talked about. Working with her on these houses and stuff, I can feel the same way that you did about young and experienced, et cetera, but she's doing pretty good. I think if she doesn't know, I think she got all the sources in-house.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
she made a couple of comments that I thought were pretty good.
She's not afraid to ask for help.
Right,
Okay.
so,
That's a
but
great endorsement.
I too, a little hesitant, but I think her heart's in the right place.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff like that.
We need to come back a little bit.
Yeah.
Started going
Yeah.
right.
Mr. Mayor, you feel that if we don't decide right now, if we can't change some of this language, we're too late?
My concern is that we give the appearance that we're dragging our feet with this to an extent where we're not interested. We've already, when I've spoken with the gentleman, he wasn't sure whether we were going to have to go through the bid process. He has had some where they do not, and others do. I don't know if that's in the case like Councilman Spurling was talking, where the legal opinion is this, that, you know, sometimes you read it your way and sometimes you read it that way, but it was kind of up in the air. My concern is we're at 5 weeks, we delay it some more, we're at 6, 7, 8, and then they're just like, we don't want the hassle. That's what my concern is.
I mean, did they already imply that they have preferred start date, construction season, grand opening, preferably this time of year versus that time of year?
The conversation, and this has been early on when we first put it up for bid, I asked what a time frame was, just a ballpark, and it was either March, April, or April, May timeframe of opening doors. So is early spring.
Okay.
Spring.
They know their timetables. I mean, sometimes they can be tossed up in 90 days for breaking ground.
Oh, sure.
Past
Well,
inspections.
weather's gonna play a part in that too.
Let me backtrack on that. April was the having all the permits. That's what it was.
Yeah. Oh, and then break ground.
And then they'd be able to break ground, which, putting up a building, what they're looking at, as far as what I've seen from other places, that's a pretty quick
That's
building.
pretty quick.
I think 90 days is probably pretty.
Yeah, it probably is,
Can we
yeah.
solidly indicate that it's gonna be a dollar type store?
That is who they are proposing it to. They have already had talks with their department that handles it. I don't remember what you called it, but the department that, from that store.
What strikes me as interesting, I am very interested to see how they work the demographics and whatnot. The studies that we had done here showed that we have great throughput, but the nature of what this community is did not lend itself. So I'm wondering if they simply drove through town and thought, why isn't there one in town? And maybe their due diligence program will, they may reach the same conclusion. I guess is what I'm thinking.
When I was speaking to him, he was looking at, some of the factors that they looked at was the number of residents and the throughput.
Yeah.
We are right at or just above that line of where they want it at a minimum.
That's good. Then maybe
So
things have
we're at
changed.
their minimum line.
Okay.
So is it a risk? Sure, to them it is, because we're at that very bottom end of, is it gonna be profitable for them?
When we heard before, and like I said, maybe the whole climate has changed now. What I heard before was simply that so many people worked out of town that they drove past big box stores on the way home every day. And that kept us from getting something similar to the Sherwood Crossings when that developer was in the right place.
And I heard that as well, but recently, with all these stores popping up, I've heard
Yeah, so maybe
just the opposite, that the clients are now, okay, we need the big box store on Saturday to get all of our groceries, but we need this
You
today.
could say the same thing about a hardware store. I mean,
Yeah.
you go to Bernard's or, you know, if you're working.
So you're right, though, there for a while, they were strictly, they went to the big box.
I mean, that's their due diligence, they'll sort that out.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You-
In the initial conversations that he had with others, yes, they need to keep costs down. It's not one where you have an open checkbook, as far as the contractor goes. But it was one, you know, bring it to us, we're very interested in it, need to keep costs down, and you are at this line, yes, let's present it. So
Okay.
they were very encouraged towards it.
Okay.
Do they build their buildings, do they have a small building for the village of Stryker, a bigger building for the village of Bryan, or city of Bryan? Do they?
They
I
have
have
standards.
seen, they have standards, but I think, I have seen larger ones and larger cities, but,
Bigger than North Central.
yeah. So I would say yes, but I think probably like a North Central is probably the smallest. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know
pretty
that
small.
at all, but it just would,
Yeah, and you're gonna go by that group of people.
yeah, so that, I would think they'd go small.
And they're probably also looking at new construction compared to existing, what can we get into?
Yeah.
Right.
Just
But the
one-
typical new store is pretty rubber stamped in a sense,
I-
as far as,
From what I've seen.
Just 1 hour ago, I had a West Unity resident at the house, and they said that Dollar General been a blessing to West Unity. So
That's all.
I'm sorry you got the time.
I've heard a lot of people that they're all for it. I mean, and you got Evansport just a few miles away that potentially could bring people in here. because
Well,
of-
I know when we first got elected, that was one of the things a lot of people came to us, wanted to see, in Dallas, in Dallas.
Been saying for years.
Yep.
okay.
Has Mr., I can't read his name, whoever signed that,
I think that's,
whatever, you know, has he bought other properties
um,
and then?
I take it that's his.
The-
property.
yeah.
I,
the one large one that I know of right off or close by would be Levens Commons. This group did that. So it's not a small.
they're not new to it.
Yeah, this is nothing.
They're building living. That's
So can they have
Yeah.
some bad parts that they
Yeah, they
built?
do that
Sure, there can be
probably.
issues there with some of the lawsuits that was possibly brought up before. But it's one of those that, it's any big company that does a lot of work, you're going to have some.
You know,
people-
Bob's
Yes.
absolutely right, they got power.
Couple engineering companies that I've been
Hmm.
trying to get grants through and working with have both told me these are the ones that we work with to do all the Dollar General stores. They knew who they were, they knew
Oh,
where they were from,
That's
they knew the
so
gentleman's
they're not a
name.
fly by night.
And so that was Hogemeyer
Yeah.
and Finch and Fowler both knew.
Hogemeyer said that too?
And Finch and Fowler both knew
Okay.
this company, this person. And they
That's
said,
interesting.
we work with, I mean, they're both calling me all eager to see if we are doing anything with this
Okay.
contract,
That's
because
actually great news, that's.
because they're chomping at the bit to contact us to see if they can be the engineering firm. So, I mean,
One hand washes the other.
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, that tells me the Franklin Land Associates, this group here, then, that they
Yep,
probably have a good eye for the property.
And
I think we
Hogemeyer's
even
not.
looked at it, but-
Hogemeyer's no swap.
well, the one
Right.
company, Fogelmeyer, said we've worked with them with all of them from here to Toledo. That was a comment that was
Okay.
made.
But
Hogemeier
that
worked with
just raised the credibility level a tremendous
Yeah.
amount.
And Feller Finch knew the person,
I'll
knew
never
the
take
company,
that. I've
knew,
worked with both exactly.
so,
I was just working on the assumption that these people had nothing to do with any of the other Dollar Generals.
No, they,
they are the,
Okay.
They're dollars.
they're the hunters of the property. Okay,
Mr.
White? Mr. Owen, any questions on it or concerns? Okay.
If you would, just run it by Katie. And like I said, I've got confidence in her. Didn't want to
Okay.
make it sound like I didn't.
No, no.
But,
We told you.
if you would just ask about 12 on page 2,
12 on 2.
and if she really feels that this whole list on B2, if that needs to be there, or if our internal zoning rules and ordinances on the book makes that unnecessary. If this was out in a rural area without a real strong form of government, maybe it would be necessary, but if it simply is redundant to
Right.
what we already have on the book, does it really need to be there? Should they have heartburn if we strike it? But 12 does concern me just a freckle, that the way it says, successors and assigns, that basically means in the perpetuity, or perpetuity. And that means that we sign this off to anybody who winds up owning that at any time going forward, whatever they choose to do with the property.
Because it refers to this agreement.
That's it,
It refers to this agreement,
right.
and this agreement has,
Door closed at the back.
if this agreement isn't acted on,
It will expire, it's like 270 days or so will expire, but if they build the building
It wasn't,
with these restrictions in place upon the property,
but what you're talking about, 12,
you know,
is just referring to this agreement.
Mhm.
but the interest in this agreement, if I had an interest in this agreement, it would be to all of this stuff back here, that it would include 15B1 and B2 as part of this agreement. And that's tied to the property.
Would it need to become part of the deed at the time?
Yeah.
You're saying the agreement would have to be part of the deed?
No, these restrictions.
Oh, the restrictions?
So then what you're saying is that once this agreement is executed, a building is built, it's completed at that time, throw it in the trash, and none
Well-
of this stuff matters. And it's not enforceable. That's what you're implying.
This, the restrictions that they would want on the property, they would want it included on the deed, I would
On the
believe.
deed, and then this would be passed.
But then if this was included in the deed.
Unless,
That
unless
would
this is
be
something that would be
to that
recorded
property.
Which is,
in the recorder's
And
office
if we
for
ever
it to go
change
on.
the ordinances to allow things to happen, but the deed restrictions remained and became greater than what our ordinances were, then it would still, the deed ordinances would still be in place. That's what happens if you buy a parcel inside a closed community and they say you can't set a shed in your yard. But the community says you can, but your deed restriction says you can't, and that means you can't.
but then
Right.
we're looking at the 1 point, well, that's nearby, 500 feet.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Should we, I know it's Mr. Owen and Mr. Thurman, should we put something in there that we can buy that back, have first dibs on it, I guess, one said?
Yeah, that was not a bad idea.
I would think that'd be something we'd love to.
First right of refusal.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Kind of protects us from
Right.
Yeah.
losing.
Yeah.
And I would think that these guys, if they've developed that many
Right.
properties,
They're
they're
gonna
used
go
to
through
going
it, yeah.
through this stuff.
They
That's-
wouldn't go
that's
through
for
these-
the world, and then you bounce
Right.
back.
Sure.
I would say they're not gonna go through these steps if they're not pretty confident it's gonna go through, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, it just, like I said, just bounce it off, maybe see what your sense for it is. Toss in that tidbit about the first right of refusal, just in case they
Right.
chose to sell.
Mr. Frisbee?
An option.
No, sir.
Were you on?
No,
Okay. The,
covered.
the thing I don't know is, can we as a council go through it and look at making changes to it since it was a submitted bid? Can we go through and get those changes, or do we have to just say, no, we're not taking it? Or is it a take all or nothing type thing? That I don't know.
That's a very good question.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, if they would have just said that, instead of sending this document, they
Right,
said,
if they
we're
said
interested, we'll
this
pay
is
this
their-
much. and-
Right.
Yes.
and let's-
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
make
yeah,
it
I wish
personal.
they would have.
That was a conversation Terry and I had at one
I,
time.
oh, shoot, I just wanted to
That's
know.
a question for Katie.
It's gonna be a question for Katie. So when we, I guess my question is, we'll need do we need a motion to go through and accept this? This
Except
way?
the monetary
Well,
portion
that's,
of it.
I'd say just the monetary portion of
Except
it.
the monetary portion of it,
Verbiage could
and,
be massaged.
Can we say accepted upon agreement of modifications or discussion of modifications or something?
let's say discussion.
I don't know, does that change the bid altogether?
Well, the bid
I know.
itself was simply, are you interested in the property or
How was that?
How was
How
it
was
work?
that work?
what was the bid process?
The Village of Strayer is accepting sealed bids for real estate along South Defiance Street. The land is described as 1.7 acres. Basically did the land description right away. If interested, contact the village fiscal officer. gave her phone number for a bid packet containing further description of said properties, which they did, they called me. I said the bid packet is basically, was gonna be the back of describing the property
Right.
and where it was, and he says, well, we have that. Sealed bids will be open August 15th, 2016 at noon. So I didn't say how we're accepting, when we were
I
accepting,
think
or
it
if we're
would
not
show-
accepting, but I know when you have a bid, it's
They-
generally a motion by council.
But they.
To accept the
They're,
bid.
they're even letter to you though, even says that, as the current owner of the real property described above, owner and hereby authorizes Franklin Land Association as its successors and assigns to act now. Owners may have requests apply for all city, county, and state approvals necessary for intended development of property, including without limitations, submissions for rezoning, plating, site, building, utility permit application. I mean, is that without limitations?
Okay, so it says, as the current owner, which is us.
Right.
So it's saying that we authorize them to act on our behalf,
Right.
to request and apply for all these permits and stuff. So
Well,
they're
they'll be
saying,
doing the permits, yes.
okay, I thought we were selling them the property.
We sell them the property, they're going through and they're doing the bunch of surveying, they're doing a bunch of stuff prior to, yes. Let me tell you.
Okay, so how that's working out, simply that we tell them it's okay to go ahead.
It's okay to get your permits and everything.
Yeah.
That's,
So where
when I
does that-
reread that,
Where
yeah.
does that put us as far as that we wind up on the hook for all these fees and costs somehow if they back out? Or is this just even implying that we're gonna get a bill from the surveyor?
Here is an email or a conversation, because my question to this company was, what would be the next step upon approval from your side? Response was, once we've executed the purchase agreement, we'll get started on our preliminary DD, geotech, site planning approval, review, budget, marketing package, etc. And once completed, we will present to DG for real estate committee approval, typically a 60-day process. Once we have the approval, we will forward with the survey, phase 1 testing, engineer drawing, and then submittals for site permits. So once they get the signed contract from us, that would be their steps with the bill, if that helps.
It's just, that's there.
Yes.
But basically, they're not, their whole bid here, the cost and whatnot is, this back page is simply them saying that we haven't bought it yet, but we want permission to be able to start
To
this.
start the process.
That's how I understand it.
That's what I, after I read it.
So it's very possible throughout this whole thing that they'll never even own it, that they'll do this item 12 assignment, that they'll assign it to the store owner.
Possibly.
Which they'd be,
Yeah.
and what that DD, I'm assuming is their
Due
due diligence.
Due diligence.
They had it, no, it wasn't. Their due diligence. And we've seen that with another location here in town that's happened a couple of times.
I think that's Bob's gonna do. I think if we lay somehow, moved it in something where the money's good, we just want the right to still negotiate a couple of items or ask questions, like you said, discussion or something. I don't know how to word it, but
D2,
that would show we're okay with.
The
And that
principle
would-
is, we're okay with it in principle.
Yeah, and that would give them, oh, okay, they're still on board. If we do nothing, I think that's gonna shut the door.
Well, then with what you, okay,
I
what.
mean, that's what I'm afraid of.
What
That's
this,
just my
what
thinking.
this looks like to me
Exactly.
is that 12, I guess I'm a little more comfortable with 12 in the assignments. As you said, that this assignment is for the agreement.
Yeah, not,
And that's what it's saying, is that it's assigning this agreement,
And now I can see where
the
what
purchase
they're,
agreement.
what they're asking for here. It just kind of looks to me as though Franklin Land Associates, it's very possible that by the time this is done over, they may not actually ever own it. They may
I
have
think
it could
transferred
It's
This-
possible.
To me, from reading others when we done things in business, this is a boilerplate thing. They just put out there.
With that being said, you could still ask Katie that, but I'm more comfortable with that now, but.
So you're saying I could strike out 12 and 2?
Yeah.
Why don't we just,
Okay.
why don't we do this? So you can,
Oh, don't worry about it. I
Okay.
don't watch it that close.
I make a motion that we accept the one bid that we did get on the land. We accept it.
Okay. Is there a second?
I can second it.
Now, does that allow us to still have a discussion with them on other language portions, or is that?
How did Terry work?
He just said that we accept,
He just accept this.
so it means we accept it as
We
is.
accept it as is, the way I said it.
Okay? You got it.
Basing on you are more comfortable, that's why I said.
And
So on that, and you can, I mean, you'll
Yeah.
have, you can go one way or the other. So with that, you got both of them?
Mhm.
Okay, so that would be a roll call.
Lovett,
Yes.
Overland,
Yes.
Whittick,
Yes?
Wheelan,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Sterling,
No.
The motion would pass. And then what I'll go through, based on that motion, I will go through and get with Katie and make sure that I sign correctly. Okay. Again, I want to thank you guys for coming through on a short notice. I know that we were still within our guidelines of notice of 24 hours. That was started Monday night, and then it started getting close, but we were definitely, we got that in, so I'm not concerned about that. I do appreciate you guys taking the time to come out of your busy schedules to do this. All right, motion to, do I need one to adjourn?
Sure.
Okay, I'll take one.
I'll motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Give your hand.
Thank you,
Sorry I
gentlemen.
was late, guys.
Thanks,
Sorry,
guys.
emergency.